but I have a massive purse collection. I'm a girl through and through. And I will tell you, I don't have a single one of those but ugly concealed carry, thick, heavy, engraved. When women truly own a relationship with guns, it becomes endemic to their whole style. It's not a adjustment. Well, I need a purse that I can conceal carry in. And so, I mean, we don't adopt the male style to it. I'm probably saying terribly inflammatory things. But if I had one thing to say to a woman who is entering the world of guns, it would be do not unnecessarily masculinize yourself. I'm not saying wear pumps. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is be who you are.
What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard! So that feelings and all of that stuff, again, you associate it with order and process
and censoring. It's the sensory, that order, that process that hits some part of my subconscious.
Sure.
That no pill will ever reach.
Yeah. So I wrote a paper gathering some information that has already been in existence from some scientists that is about what I call special emotional reference. And it is an argument for the relationship between humans and projectiles, specifically having had been so critical to our evolution in the late part of our evolution, but also tied to the millions of years that it took us to be able to learn how to throw. We can't, no other species on the planet can do what we do with throwing. It's our superpower.
Right.
And everything about us optimized for it. That in order to stay with a process like that in more primitive beings, it would have required some deep emotional chemical stimulation and reward system. And so it is likely that special emotional reverence is part of that. And so my hypothesis would be, yes, all of those things that you like, order and the thing and the stuff, that's part of it. But I think also, honestly, when you're feeling that, I say it's opening up the door to the Homo sapien projectile club. Like it's an internal thing that we could actually test with an MRI and measuring blood, that it wouldn't happen exactly the same in all people. But if you get a person to do some sort of a significant experience with a projectile mechanism, it's going to be a gun. And by the way, I don't think it's going to be as applicable with handguns, because there's something about the 4 points of connection with the rifle to the body that puts it right to you. That I think that the facts are there, personally.
I feel the exact same way with a longbow. And it might have something to do with the fact that I come from a long line of weapons makers way back when, and soldiers, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
My grandmother is descendant from the first gunsmith in Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay, interesting.
And Fletcher's, which is my maiden name, we were weapons makers. We were arrow makers. And interestingly enough, in my bloodline is a mutation called factor V Leiden, which is a clotting mutation, which would have kept us alive on the battlefield.
We need to talk about that more.
Yeah.
Maybe not this time, but
no, but yeah, you're going to have a lot of content to be editing. I'm sorry.
No, this is what I want. This is great.
So it's not surprising, because it's the same focus. It is the same. What am I looking at? What am I targeting? The slowing of the breathing, the deeper breaths, the narrowing in on it. And when you're in the midst, and that's one of the things I like about an enclosed range where I'm sitting there and there aren't people within my immediate eyesight on either side of it, is your focus is so focused.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, after the studies of the last 5 years, I don't believe that anything is just cultural or social or
Uh-uh.
environmental. Like, yes, a lot of it is, but we're genetically optimized for objects in an external environment, and all of our genetics are basically pointing in that direction. And
Yep.
you can't fucking do anything, not just weapons. You can't do
Right.
anything without your genes firing and not firing, and you can't do anything. So there has to be a biological element to a lot of this shit,
Hmm.
whether we're talking about men being dicks or women being dicks or fucking guns. Like and I think it just helps us to understand it. Not that it like ultimately gets us in a place where we're like, aha, eureka. And now we figured out all of humanity's problems.
Right.
But certainly I think with weapons, it's definitely there. And we won't talk about it today, but I definitely do want to talk to you about like I didn't know that about your family and weapons. And that's fucking amazing.
It's not something it was in the genealogical research that I was like, oh, oh, that makes so much sense. And so I said to my hematologist, who was like, you have factor V Leiden, and that increases your risk of clotting with everything else going on. And I was like, do you understand that those clotting factors kept us alive
Yeah.
on the battlefield?
Yeah.
That you'd hit one of us with an arrow and we'd walk off. And that's the stories in the family. Like he got hit with an arrow and he walked off the battlefield because your blood clotted. And so, where we evolve in an evolutionary way, I think that that connection to weapons and war and fighting and to our blood is a connection. Like we survived because we weren't readily killed in battle, which is why I keep saying it's going to be harder to kill me than people think.
Which is why you're like an ass kicking woman also who doesn't take fucking shit. Like that's probably all connected to that as
M-
well.
My guess is that the Viking/Scandinavian blood that sits in me is probably pretty thick.
Yeah. Do you have red hair? I can't tell. Do you have, is it?
I do. I am a natural strawberry blonde. Right now, I'm covering gray because it turns
Okay.
out that silver gray is a terrible color on me, and it actually. So, but I do an under dye on my hair,
Okay.
which is literally been called dipped in the blood of my enemies. And it's an under dye I do. It's because again, there's this assumption that a CEO in a government contracting world that is dealing with technology and management services has to look and be a certain way. And I just blow through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Though, yeah. I would say, I mean, it's an easy hypothesis to make, but it seems all connected. All of it seems connected. My
Yep.
point that I make is to people is when you're talking about, so fuck it. It doesn't like, here's the thing. We don't have to make the genetic argument. We could just make the deep innate. It's just deep and innate
Right.
argument. We don't have to say genes but it's deep and it's innate. So that shit is so powerful that in your instance and in my instance where I had a similar experience with my biological father who was the gun person, the alcoholic, the dangerous person, and it created an aversion in me. Right? I shot a little bit
Really?
yes. And I shot
Wow.
when I was a kid. I walked away from that side of the family permanently. I wasn't like, oh, guns are the worst. I just was like, nah. Anything that had to do with them, I was like, nah. But guess what? Later in life, some things happen. Boom, the switch gets turned on in me. It's time to go back to the
Right.
guns again. So look at all of the cultural pressure, the environmental pressure, the psychological pressure to not engage it. And
Right.
despite all of that, it still works its way to the surface and you still become it. And
So my,
I was just going to
go
say, I
ahead.
have a lot of people in LGO where that happened. There was a
Yeah.
phenomenal amount of environmental and social pressure against them discovering it or rediscovering it. And it was nowhere near powerful enough. And the innateness came to the surface and it won.
So, Brian Robinson, I think you know him, has one of the most powerful stories he's a story I would encourage you to go seek out, because he is almost one of my heroes in how he has approached himself and following the election in 2016. One of my favorite moments was a woman that we'd had a couple of debates online with each other about guns, and she had been adamantly against guns. And she reached out to me privately one day and she said, I think I need to learn how to shoot. She'd had something happen in her personal life. And so I took her to the range and I went with a friend of mine who's an NRA certified instructor and does a better job of the teaching of the ins and outs of the gun than I do. And as we were walking out of the range, I asked her how did she feel about this, knowing that she was coming from this place of absolute guns are the devil and people should not own them, to this moment where she'd been firing. And she said, I felt powerful. And it wasn't like I feel powerful as in I can conquer the whole rest of the world. It is, I feel powerful. I can take care of myself. And in her case, she can take care of her daughter. And I was so proud of her because the hardest step is the first step. It is the take everything you thought you knew, everything you believed, everything and you just tuck it off to the side and try it.
My wife and I have to deal with this all the time. She's from a third world country that's Catholic and Latino.
Oh,
And so you imagine this. She has this picture. I'll ask her to give to, I think she digitized it or she took a picture of it so I can have it on the screen, right? I'll send it to you. It's a picture of, I guess it's the end of high school. It's like a dance, cotillion or some shit. It's her dad and his friends and all of their girlfriends. It's in El Salvador is where they're from.
oh, gotcha. Okay.
So they're at this dance or they're getting ready to go to the dance or whatever. And all of the men are dressed up wonderfully, very handsome, standing up in a line. All of the women are in front of them, kneeling, looking up at them, both knees on the ground, looking up at the men. That's the fucking picture. If you ever want to vomit on something, even I was like, holy shit, but this is normal for them, right? So
right.
You have generations of this going into my wife's psyche, and she still has to fight it and struggle against it. So, and me, I have an aversion to, as much as I'm like, fuck you motherfuckers, straighten up.
Right.
I have an aversion to, look, I like naps and pizza and like, I want to go down to the river with my guitar and pick some chords and shit. Like,
yes.
I don't want to be parental to adults. I don't want to be in charge. I don't want like massive authority.
Right.
I only do it because I have to, right? I don't want to be in charge of my wife. It makes me vomit. It makes me tired. I have kids and goats. Like, I don't want to manage a full grown adult. So whenever this stuff pops up in her, we have these conversations like, well, like I have no interest. Like, I'm just make sure you know, I have no interest in managing this. Like,
right.
But it's still inside of her. And so I'm bringing all this up because I think what a fucking deep psychological burden it has to be for a woman to think that at the level of her existence, she must rely on another person, but specifically a male, for all of her existential protection. She simply is incapable. If she does not, if she does not have that, she cannot make it. And that's probably hundreds of thousands of years old. And what a fucking hassle. Seriously. Like, what a fucking hassle that must be. And if women break through this, because the gun does it. It's not just in your experience. Like, I'll let you speak and then I'll tell you about an example after you speak. The gun does that emotionally for women. Like,
it's one of the things that can do that.
Yes. It's probably not the most important, but it's one that makes the fucking point pretty quick.
So I think the truth about guns and women is in the ugliness of the purses that are made for women to conceal carry in. Because no truly empowered gun owning, conceal carrying woman would ever pick one of those purses. And I'm telling you, I'll be out with a couple of my gun owning female friends looking at something we can conceal carry with, and I'll be in a Coach store and I'll be looking at that Coach store going, here's a pocket we can use. And I use that sort of humorously, but it's true. When women truly own their relationship with guns, they do not go to a gun show looking at those butt ugly leather purses hanging on the thing. When women are making those bags for sale or, in a gun show, those are women who are still looking at their husbands to protect them. I mean, it's the difference. And I'm sure that these women, big backlash, this woman doesn't know what we're talking about, but I have a massive purse collection. I'm a girl through and through. And I will tell you, I don't have a single one of those butt ugly concealed carry, thick, heavy, engraved. None of us would ever do it. And I said to a guy in a restaurant recently, his wife had handed him her purse and walked into the restroom. And I said, I see she's a concealed carry person. And he looked at me. I said, I'd recognize that bag style anywhere. And he's like, hell yeah, she is. And I'm like, it also giveaway. It's when women truly own a relationship with guns, it becomes endemic to their whole style. It's not a adjustment. Well, I need a purse that I can conceal carry in. And so, I mean, we don't adopt the male style to it. I'm probably saying terribly inflammatory things. But if
Sweet.
I had one thing to say to a woman who is entering the world of guns, it would be do not unnecessarily masculinize yourself. I'm not saying wear pumps. Don't,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is be who you are. And I just don't know a lot of women, in my circle of friends at least, who are going to do leather engraved purses with a deer on the front. And you know what I'm talking about, right? You've seen them.
Of course.
What they ever
Of
live in
course.
hell?
Fucking. I don't know, I guess that's a long conversation. It's, but I mean, not to mention the fact that, okay, if you got to bag your gun because that's the way you're going to carry it, fine. But it's got to be the worst draw position for actually fucking defending yourself, which is a whole other fucking, and these leather things are fucking awkward.
First of all, if you're gonna bag draw, crossbody purse. Crossbody every way. You don't want to be drawn from a bag hanging on the back of your head. And the second thing is women's fashion looks really dumpy if you're going to conceal carry on your body. It's really, really hard to not print if you're a woman.
These are important points that men often don't discuss or think about. We got to be realistic about what we're going to
Yeah.
wear in public. And I mean, I will just tell you this. I don't hate pistols, but pistols are a fucking pain. Like, I just think for my hands, I'm a huge guy, 6'4". My arms are
Oh
super
yeah.
long. Like, I don't care what anybody, why don't I care what anybody fucking says? When you have to stick these huge fucking tent poles out in front of you and stabilize a pistol way out in front, like, it's fucking annoying. I will take a shoulderable anything any day of the week over a fucking pistol and sticking that goddamn thing on my body. I can still carry. I'm not an everyday carrier. I'm
Me
a
too.
many day carrier. I'll make it work, but it feels like ass.
Right.
I don't like it, and I'm
Right.
never gonna
The
like it.
blade I carry in my purse is far more effective in my hands.
Sure. Yeah, I think that also. Yeah, I mean, there's a limit to the gun. Your sword is probably better
Yeah.
in your office. For me, what COVID brought me was I got into boxing, and the same feeling that we're talking about with the guns, I had the same thing come out of my blood for boxing. Holy shit, is it taken my self-defense reality to a
Yes.
whole other level in a place that guns never have to this
Right.
day.
Oh, that's because the physical so you're getting the physical reverb through your body every time you hit something.
And you can see how you can exchange power from your body to a surface and how effective and practical it is. So this is another reason for I've got the fucking shooting lane 150 yards, over here. I want to hit the heavy bag before I fucking, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
way before. So there's practical shit going on with females. People need to understand it.
Right.
Fashion is very, very important. I totally get that. And just wearing a fucking gun on your body is annoying.
It's uncomfortable. It's super uncomfortable. And we have curves in different things that men do. And that,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, here's the belly band. We're going to do a belly band carry. And I'm like, itches. It itches. No. I don't know what kind of tough you guys have got going on, but
That's real talk there. Fuck
Right?
you, it itches.
Yeah.
But that's
It's
real.
real. It's honest. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not doing that. And
Yeah.
and maybe it's
Fuck you,
just
your holster's itchy.
right, right. Maybe I just don't go into a place where I'm likely to be in a gunfight,
Right.
you know?
Yes. That's a good point too. Um, there is something in here that I definitely want to ask you.
Okay.
So look, relationships, marriages, right? Guns are a contentious thing in marriages, right? Many
Yep.
marriages. I completely agree when somebody says it's about compromises. Okay, that's real. I'm not shitting on that. But my experience is if I had to pick the number one thing that holds liberal gun owners as an organization or a phenomenon that holds it back is the lack of the people's ability who are involved in liberal gun ownership. Their lack of ability or choices or desire to actually step forward, step out in the world and help and do things. The vast majority of the men involved in liberal gun ownership are hiding to one degree or another.
Hmm.
Their gun ownership.
Yeah.
It's understandable why, and I think it's acceptable up until a point. But they are hiding to one degree or another from their significant other, from their friends, from their community, from their job. They're hiding it. Or they're downplaying it. Right?
Hmm.
They will spend hours a day making it the priority in the digital realm. But in the real world, they're hiding it to one degree or another. I'm going somewhere with
Right. I'm following.
it. Okay. So there is a difference between, honey, this is a compromise. I like these things. We need to have the discussion and we're going to work this out. There's a difference between that and men who fucking mail it in. There's a difference. And we have too many men that mail it in. And so what do I mean by mail it in? That is, they're in a relationship where the things that they like or they enjoy generally, they just mail it in and don't want to get into it with their wife. Like their wife is their mommy, and essentially, and she's kind of in charge, or they just don't want to ruffle feathers, but they live their lives like they just don't want to ruffle feathers. They live their lives so that they don't pique the anxiety of their partner. And so they don't go in and have the conversations necessarily, I think the tough conversations that you would have to have about guns if you're serious about them, especially if you're serious about self-defense.
Hmm.
So I think this issue is about maturity again. And I don't think I get it with it's a compromise. But frankly, when I look at it after being involved in 10 years, this is largely, the community is held back largely because there's a correlation between immature men and the power totem, and they're really into it and they hide it too much and they don't want to have the conversation with their wife. Does that make sense to you? And what do you think about that?
It does make sense to me. And so keep in mind, I'm a divorced woman. I was married one time, and my ex-husband and I are still very close. He lives all the way on the other side, on the 50th state. Um, but we work together actually. And we learned that we were better friends than we were partners. And it was about it, and what ended our marriage fundamentally was about um, investment in each other. It was about whether or not his health, in his case, was whether or not I was important enough for him to do some things that he needed to do to be better healthy. And remember, this is coming from the woman who's like, unless I am convinced you're going to make my life better, doctor, we're not talking. But he had some challenges he needed to deal with. And I was also not great at being a wife. Like, I'm honest about it, tend to be career oriented, and I'm not always great at needing a man to take care of me. And my sisters have observed that men need to be able to take care of their wives, and so it can be a challenge. We can speculate on it all that we want, but the fact is we are not together any longer. But we are the best of friends, and it's the right answer. But I will say that at the time we were married, guns was the one thing we absolutely agreed on. Neither one of us wanted them in the house. Neither one of us wanted to shoot them. This was long before the conversation with my dad and my learning better. So that's a long way of saying if your partner and you can't talk about your something you love, something that matters to you, the problem is not the thing that matters to you. The problem is the relationship. And it may just be a precursor. And men and women who are owning guns and not really talking about it with their spouses um, should probably seek some help to talk through the what if. But I think a lot of times people are like, I don't want this relationship to end. There's too much good in it, there's more value in it. And they just don't have the skills necessary to come to a compromise that is, oh, somebody got a bath. Sorry, Valor is one of the two service dogs, and he is prepping for big things this week. Anyway,
Okay.
so my assistant is here and has just given him a bath, and he is raced up
Excellent.
here. Anyway, so it's a long way of saying if your problem is talking about guns in your relationship, then talking about guns in your relationship is not your problem. And that couples or thruples or whatever combination you've got going on in your life, need to be willing to trade off the things that are really important to them for other things that are more important. But when you're lying about it, you're just not willing to make a decision. And we may lose gun owners in the liberal gun community because the decision they make is to choose their partners.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if that relationship is in really good shape and you feel like you're giving up and you're getting back, do it. And I have a conservative friend whose wife does not like guns at all, and it is such a big part of his life. It's such a huge part of his life. And I have often wondered where the good in their marriage was for something to be so significant to him and so much of an um, anathema to her. Does that make sense? I learned to shoot because I love my father. And my father was deeply imperfect, but he was absolutely my dad. And we could fight and we could disagree, but when it came right down to it, I was, oops, I got to hit this. I'm still here. I was willing to overcome the fear in order to do something for a man that I love.
I don't have an answer to it, but again, I'm going to come back to deep innateness. We kind of live in a dream a lot, and we run off of, again, I'll bring it back to myth. We kind of run off of mythologies until the real world kind of slams into them and challenges them, and then we don't get rid of the mythology. We kind of just adjust it.
Right.
And because humans are storytelling, story believing, we need it. We need stories inside of us, right? So it's emotional, it's complex, our relationship with our mythologies. It's one kind of mythology There are two. There are two competing ones, and it's been happening for hundreds of years. And that is, one believes that the powers above you are enough to take care of business to keep you safe. And the other one is, no, probably not. We at least need to be able to do it ourselves. And so there's a politics surrounding those two things. And classically, often, although it's not always the case, that in my experience in LGO, the wife or the woman is the one that's more likely to believe that the state or the thing above you is enough, that the police are enough. And the men are often the ones that start to broach this thing where they were liberals, so they were middle class. They were never raised up around it. But some kind of shit goes down and their eyes start to open a little bit to it. Now, that's not to say that there isn't the opposite happening too, where women are dealing with domestic violence or other. That's also happening. I just think a little bit more. It's that there was this mythological agreement by middle class people that they were going to go along and do this thing, and it was going to be in this image and beautiful, and we're going to have the kids and the college, and we're going to have to do well. And then boom, this existential crisis-y thing comes in. And one of the people, I don't really fucking care if it's the man or the woman, goes, hey, wait a minute. And then you have a conflict of fundamental mythologies, right? Or beliefs. What's the answer? I don't know. I just see a lot of it, one. And two, I see dudes that just are going to fucking mail it in. Like, it's an existential issue.
Right.
And it's one thing if you mail it in with, like, we were at the Red Box and I wanted to go adventure and she went in rom-com and I just fucking mailed it in. Okay, so you're going to mail it in at the Red Box. Right. That's cool. But we're mailing it in with something deep and existential. That sticks out to me as something that's not good.
Look, there is a lot of room for time apart in a healthy relationship. And there's a lot of time for, I'm going to dedicate some of my space to something you enjoy to do. And in an ideal relationship, I think you have more overlap of things that you enjoy doing together than less. But that, there is a space for folks to go off and be able to do their own thing, and they should be happy and healthy in it. And frankly, you get your time. I say that as a classic introvert. My idea of a perfect night after a long long week of peopling is, I don't care what's sitting on the television in front of me, just don't make me talk. And I want to make sure I'm holding the thread of the question and comment that you made. But what really strikes me is you have to be okay in each of you being who you are. And you each have to make a contribution into the bank that is us. And if that contribution into the bank of that which is us is not enough to meet the emotional needs of the partnership, then you don't have a partnership. And that has to be roughly equivalent. There has to be balance. And of course, women are famous for like keeping that little to-do list, that little chit list in their head on this, but I think men do too.
Sure.
I will say also this. I have had a couple of encounters with Fairfax County's finest, and I am grateful for their presence every day, but I'm a middle-class white woman living in a middle-class suburb.
Yeah.
I have not had the social experience of being targeted by law enforcement. I have had the social experience of having been protected by law enforcement. But I recognize in my privilege the responsibility to say to law enforcement, hey, it's not okay. We have to treat every citizen with responsibility. And I do think that law enforcement in our area, by far and large, is very much that. But it's not that way everywhere. So did I get to the crux of the...
Yes, you did. The crux was really about what's the line between a compromise in a relationship over issues And when you get to something as serious about guns, it indicates something often. And sometimes it indicates to me is that the way that couples react around the male being typically the male starting to get into guns or being into guns and the female not being into guns, it highlights that it's more than just a compromise thing. There could often be a root issue with the relationship itself.
Yep.
And guns just flushes it to the surface.
Yep. When I am with someone, I want to be interested, at least understand something they've become interested in. Now, if they have suddenly become interested in something like child pornography, that's a dead stop. But that's also a socially and universally recognized taboo. And so I would advise anyone who's in a relationship with me not to get into child porn because you're going down. I'm taking you down. But if it's guns, which a lot of people could view, a lot of liberals do view guns on par with child pornography. That may be the relationship breaker between the two of you, but it's certainly not an illegal, socially unacceptable interest. And if my partner is developing an interest in something that is within our social norms and social boundaries, I'm going to want to learn it. I'm going to want to understand it. I'm going to want to see if it's a relationship where we can share that interest.
That's great. That's a beautiful way to put it. We have been on it for over 2
I
hours. I do not
know.
want to hold you forever, but I feel like I could go forever. Do you have anything else that you wanted to? And by the way, we have other opportunities in the future if we want to do. But do you have anything else other than what we've talked about that you would like to put out there about guns or death or the medical establishment or anything like that?
So, I think in all of this, the one tying factor is that we are responsible for our own damn selves. And there are things that we get socialized into believing that we need to be able to speak up about and say, this is not okay. And we have institutions that say, oh no, we know better than you. And they don't. They don't. Their job is to do testing, look at what they see, and give you some thoughts around it. And your job is to say, I'm good with that, I'm not good with that, and to be respected in your decisions. And that applies in everything. As long as you are not hurting another person, the very root word of liberal, liber, is the Greek or Latin, I think it is actually, for free to. The very essence of liberty is to be free to make the decisions that are right for you. Our Constitution is pretty clear that we should not be free to do to other people the things that hurt them. We cannot take liberty from others. We should not try to take liberty from others unless we're having to defend ourselves against them trying to do the same thing. In everything that we do, we have to look at impact, the right and wrongness of it. And you have a responsibility to look at what's right for you. And whether it's guns or medical decisions or where you work or who you work for or what you do, what you eat, all of those go into the same pieces. And liberals should remember that. That root of our word is the most powerful part of it. And that comes to owning guns and shooting guns.